Hi everyone, it's Maria, and today I'm doing 2 book reviews for books that have blown me away in the past week. I'm going to do non-spoilery things. One of them is fiction, one of them is nonfiction, but these books I really think are must-reads, especially if you consider yourself a feminist. So first up is the fiction one. This is Florence Gordon by Brian Morton. And this book has been on my Goodreads TBR for probably 2 or 3 years. I think I heard about it first on maybe one of the Book Riot podcasts. I don't really know. This title does not draw me in. This cover does not draw me in. But for some reason, every time I culled my Goodreads lists of books to go check out from the library, this one stayed on. And I'm so very glad it did. Just really glad it did. The last time I went to the library, I went and actually looked through the shelves to find books that popped out at me of books that I knew had been on my to read shelf for forever and I just hadn't picked them up. And this one I grabbed and I put it in my bag, and I'm so grateful because this is probably going to be one of my favorite books of the year. This book is about Florence Gordon, who is a fictional feminist icon along the likes of Gloria Steinem. She kind of ran in those circles in this story. And she's at this point, I think in her early 90s, late 80s, but she is not a very likable character. The first scene talks about how she's writing her memoir and she's very annoyed because one of her friends calls her out for dinner and she would rather just be at home writing her memoir and disregarding that other people exist. She tells it like it is, and so you love her for that. She's not afraid to call people out, and a lot of times, I think pretty much everything she says is pretty truthful. Whether it's kind or not is not the point. She feels she has earned the right, and I think she's always been like this anyway, to say it like it is. So this is her kind of coming to grips with her changing of season. It's her last stage of life. What is she going to produce? Who is she as a writer? Who is she as a family person? Has she made good choices? Does she even care what other people think? And then it ties in so many other characters too. And so you meet her son, her doting daughter-in-law, her granddaughter, who doesn't quite know what to make of her grandma, but ends up kind of forming this relationship with her. You see the granddaughter's boyfriend, who reminded me of an ex-boyfriend I would rather forget as well. But it is about her helping them deal with their life as she deals with her own. I don't want to spoil anything in here, but the whole idea of everybody being in their own universe and just kind of parallel universes running catty corner to each other, all of us thinking we know what other people are thinking about us when really they're just dealing with their own issues. It's told from so many different perspectives. You're seeing inside everybody's head. And so I just really adored this. And I was not expected for my emotional outburst at the end. I mean, the last 5 to 10 pages, I was gasping and talking out loud and crying, and just, it was perfect. This book was perfect to me. And it wasn't really that long. I think it's under 300 pages. So, I just really, really love this book. If you've read it and you want to send me a message or talk in the comments, just put a little spoiler tag on it so people don't ruin it for themselves. But really great book. And I also appreciate that there's so many feminist history things to look up, and as well as books or articles that are mentioned that are actually real things. So even if you kind of find yourself new to the feminist world of writing, there's a lot of good suggestions in here as well. It was just knock out of the park great. The other book that I read, I actually just read it last night, and it's Amami Al-Khatahtbeh's MuslimGirl, A Coming of Age. And this one, I think, is 160 pages or so. So it's really short. It's a nonfiction memoir of a woman who, I think she's probably early 20s. It's her talking about her story of being a Muslim girl and then starting this, I guess it's a website. I looked it up, and I'm really excited to go back through the backlog and see what it's about. But it's MuslimGirl.com. So if you're familiar with that, that's where it's from. I appreciate this book because it challenged a lot of my own ideas about Islam. I didn't realize like that she wears the hijab, and it's a big part of her identity. She talks about her struggle of trying to figure out if she should wear it or not. And it starts kind of with the whole 9/11 story from her perspective, and what her life was like after that, how she feels it's affected people and how they react to other Muslims. I didn't realize that wearing the hijab was such a choice. Her mom chooses not to, and so she said it was interesting seeing people's reaction to her versus her mother. And it was really well done. It brought up lots of good questions. The other thing I wanted, the whole idea, she's definitely very feminist. And I love this because there's a lot of times you get in your echo chambers, and I'm really trying to look at feminism as an intersectional thing, not just from a bunch of white women, but from women of color, transgender, lesbian, all those kinds of different perspectives of feminism, because I think they add a lot to our story. But one of the things that I appreciated in her story is where she's talking about how some people feel they're too covered up. Why do you have your hijab on? Why do you take it off? You're being oppressed. Whereas the Western perspective of wearing very little clothing and showing all of it off is also shown as not being feminist enough. And so it's this whole focus on control and seeing what your body looks like or doesn't look like, or what's covered or what's not covered, as opposed to looking at the woman as a person with a brain and a story and a perspective and things to share. And I really appreciated that she challenged me and her other readers to look not at what somebody's wearing, because that's not what's important, but asking what's inside their head and what's inside their stories to tell. And so I really appreciated that whole idea of oppression, as there's this whole continuum. And honestly, as a woman, you're never exactly perfect on the continuum. Somebody's always going to think you're not showing off enough, or you're showing off too much, or it's crap. You're fine how you are. So I really appreciate that she mentions that. I also liked the stories talking about the immigrant perspective, because she does talk about her father, who's kind of had to feel a little bit like an outsider, although he's trying to give his kids a different life than he had, and how they go back to Jordan for a while and then come back to the States, and what that transition is like for especially a teenager. So anyway, it's a really short read, but it packs a good punch. If you don't pick up the book, at least take a peek over at the MuslimGirl.com website, because I think there's lots of articles. They have several contributors. And I think it is our job not to stay in our own corners all the time and just hear what other people like us think and feel. So I'm really excited to kind of expand my worldview a little bit more on that. I do plan on reading the Quran or parts of the Quran within the next couple years, just because I think it's ignorant to avoid it. And not even avoid it, but just to miss it. I think the more we know about each other, the more connections we have, the more we can learn from each other. And I'm really excited about that. So yeah, Muslim Girl and Florence Gordon. This is a library copy, and you can bet that on my next book buying day, this is getting added to the list because I loved it. I will talk to you all later. Bye.